The ancient rain tapped a respectful rhythm against the tall bay windows of the imposing red brick house in Stratford-upon-Avon. Inside, however, a different kind of warmth bloomed, a concentrated, almost visceral heat generated by cinnamon-dusted soul cakes and the flickering light of dozens of beeswax candles. It was Halloween night, but for the Hartley family, the 31st of October was not about plastic gore. It was about Hallows Eve, a solemn, beautiful ritual to honor the lineage. Eliza Hartley, 54 years old, adjusted the deep green woolen shawl, the same one worn by her own mother, centering the flame of remembrance. This light was a beacon for ancestral spirits. Yet the most important descendant, Emily, 20 years old, was absent. She was under pulsing strobe lights at a Birmingham student flat, mocking the very candlelight that sustained her family's identity. When Emily finally stumbled home past midnight, the house dark and silent, she found Eliza waiting in the hall shadows, the generations of Hartley oak, the family paddle held steadily in her hand. The quiet disapproval carried more weight than any storm outside. The red brick house in Stratford-upon-Avon held its breath after the guests departed. The scent of beeswax and spilled cider still hung faintly in the air, a testament to the Hartley annual observance of Hallows Eve. Eliza Hartley, 54, now removing the deep green woolen shawl that had felt like armor against the chill of her daughter's absence, surveyed the quiet hall. Her gaze stopped on the dark wood banister, where Emily's coat was carelessly tossed. A careless gesture, mirroring the recent state of her spirit, that Emily Hartley, 20 years old, stumbled through the front door just after midnight, her high-heeled black boots clicking unevenly on the hardwood floor. Her ash-blonde hair was a ruined testament to a night spent under strobe lights, and her plum-stained lips were curved into a self-satisfied smirk. She giggled softly, unaware that the warmth she sought had been replaced by a profound, chilling cold. "Mom, I didn't wake you, did I?" "You missed the ritual," Emily mumbled, tossing her clutch bag onto a nearby table. Eliza stepped out from the hallway shadows. The dim light caught the familiar, unsettling sight, the long, smooth paddle carved from oak, polished by generations of responsible Hartleys, held vertically in her hand. "You missed the ritual." Eliza's 54 voice was calm, but it carried the resonant weight of deep sorrow, not anger. "You missed guiding the spirits of your ancestors home." Emily rolled her eyes, a gesture of youthful dismissal that stung Eliza more than any word. "Oh, come on. It's just candles and old songs. No one even does that anymore. My friends think it's weird." "We don't do it for your friends," Eliza replied evenly, stepping closer. The only sound was the gentle drip of residual rain from the eaves. "We do it for your great-grandmother, who kept this tradition alive through the Blitz, for your grandmother who taught you to bake soul cakes when you were 6, and for me, who raised you to know where you come from. You are 20 years old, Emily. You are an adult who chose mockery over memory." "It's 2025, Mom," Emily retorted, crossing her arms tightly over her dark blue sleeveless top. "We're not living in a Dickens novel. We have modern traditions." "That's exactly the problem," Eliza said softly, her eyes locking onto Emily's. "You've forgotten who you are. You've traded deep roots for surface glitter. Come with me." Emily hesitated, recognizing the unshakable resolve in her mother's posture. That firmness, tinged with unmistakable grief, always held sway. She followed Eliza down the hallway, past the framed black and white photos, into the study. This room smelled intensely of ink and aged wood, a library of inherited knowledge. "Bend over," Eliza instructed, her voice low but unwavering, pointing to her own lap, positioning herself near the sturdy leather armchair. "What?" "No, I'm 20. "Mom, I'm not 12, Emily protested, her cheeks flushing crimson as the reality of the situation solidified. "And yet you acted like a child who scorns her roots," Eliza countered. "This isn't about age and years, Emily. It's about the maturity to respect your lineage. You scorned the very ground you stand on." Emily swallowed hard, the metallic taste of fear mixing with shame. Slowly, reluctantly, she bent forward, resting her upper body across Eliza's 54 lap. Her ash-blonde hair, still teased wildly, spilled over her mother's shoulder. Her dark blue top pulled tight across her back. The oak paddle hovered for a breath, a dark, polished shadow against the ambient candlelight that Eliza had left burning for the ancestors. Then it landed with a firm, sharp THWACK. Emily, 20, gasped, a sound of pure shock and sudden, radiating heat. It wasn't the blinding pain she might have imagined, but a focused, resonant sting that instantly brought her back to the present moment, stripping away the effects of the party. Her fingers instinctively gripped the carved arm of the leather armchair. The second stroke followed, measured, deliberate, landing squarely across the thin fabric of her black leggings. "Do you understand why this is happening?" Eliza, 54, asked, her voice steady, counting the cadence of her actions. Emily, 20, bit her lip until she tasted copper. Tears pricked her eyes, the glitter around them suddenly feeling cheap and fragile. I skipped the ritual," she whispered, the words catching. "And I made fun of it online. I called it ... cringe." The word tasted bitter in her mouth. Another paddle strike, firmer this time, landing with a deeper resonance. Emily flinched violently, her shoulders tightening. "I forgot." Her voice cracked, raw with sudden, genuine pain, emotional and physical combined. "I forgot what it means to you." To us, the paddling stopped. The silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of anticipation. It was the quiet of finality. Eliza set the oak paddle aside with precision and gently helped Emily to sit up. Emily's face was streaked with tears and smudged plum makeup. Her wildly styled ash-blonde hair looked disheveled and small around her face. She looked, momentarily, like the child who used to hide her face during thunderstorms, seeking the safety of her mother's skirt. "I'm sorry, Mom," she choked out, the confession wrenching from her core. "I didn't mean to hurt you or dishonor them." She gestured weakly toward the portraits lining the study walls. "I just wanted to fit in." Eliza, 54, pulled her daughter close, wrapping her securely in the deep green shawl that still smelled faintly of beeswax and autumn. "Fitting in doesn't mean erasing where you came from, Emily. Your roots aren't a costume you take off when it's inconvenient. They are the structure that holds you up when the strobe lights burn out." Emily, 20, buried her face into her mother's shoulder, weeping not from the smarting pain, but from a deep, consuming regret. The physical sting had forced a reckoning with her emotional negligence. The next morning, Emily, 20, rose before the sun had fully chased away the Stratford-upon-Avon mist. The lingering ache served as her alarm clock and her personal mandate. Without a word, without prompting, she tied on her grandmother's faded, oatmeal-colored apron. She moved to the kitchen, where the old ceramic mixing bowl sat waiting. She found the yellowed recipe card, the looping cursive of her grandmother's hand guiding her. Flour, butter, nutmeg, honey. The ingredients were simple, but the process was sacred. She worked slowly, deliberately, feeling the connection to every Hartley woman who had ever stood in this spot on Hallows Eve. This was not merely baking. This was an act of penance, an offering of renewed intention. When the first batch of soul cakes emerged from the oven, golden brown and radiating the scent of cinnamon and spice, Emily, 20, performed the first new ritual. She selected 2 of the best cakes, wrapped them carefully in clean linen cloth, and carried them silently to the study altar. She placed them gently beside the central remembrance candle, which Eliza, 54, had already lit as the first light of dawn touched the bay windows. Next, she addressed her rebellion. She opened her phone, the device that had been the instrument of her distraction. She found the story, the mocking selfie, where her ash-blonde hair was teased high and her lips were stained plum. She deleted it. Then, she drafted a new message to her cousin, Maya, 22. "So sorry, I missed last night's blessing. Can I come over this weekend? I'd like you to show me how to light the candle properly. I need to do it right this time." She found Eliza, 54, in the garden, tending to the robust rosemary bushes, wearing tan work gloves and sensible gardening shoes. Emily, 20, walked up, holding out the cloth-wrapped cake. Eliza took it, her eyes meeting Emily's. There was no interrogation, only acceptance in her gaze. Emily spent the rest of the morning absorbing the history of the Hartley family, reading the brittle pages of the ledger, detailing generations of resilience. She traced the names, the dates, the symbols etched into the historical records, finally understanding that the ritual wasn't about superstition. It was about anchoring herself to strength. Later that afternoon, she returned to the study alone. She sat in the leather armchair, deliberately pulling Eliza's, 54, deep green shawl around her shoulders. She opened the family ledger again, tracing the names of the Hartley women back to 1842. "I won't forget you again," she whispered, the words sincere, binding her to the past. The room smelled not of old ink, but of future commitment. The following Sunday afternoon, the sun streamed fiercely through the bay windows, contrasting sharply with the gloom of Halloween night. The family gathered again, smaller this time, immediate relatives only for tea. The atmosphere was lighter, the silence between Eliza, 54, and Emily, 20, having been replaced by easy conversation. Emily, wearing a pale yellow blouse and clean dark trousers, participated fully, laughing genuinely at her uncle's stories. As they began to clear the low wooden table. Eliza, 54, simply gestured for Emily to follow her upstairs. Emily went without hesitation, her movements fluid and respectful. In Eliza's, 54, immaculate bedroom. With its cream-colored walls and perfectly made bed, Eliza went to her dark cherry wood dresser. She opened a velvet-lined box resting there. She lifted out the heirloom, a delicate silver pendant shaped like a flame, encircled by ivy, the symbol of the Hartley resilience. "This was your great-grandmother's," Eliza, 54, said. Holding it so the light caught the silver. "She wore it every All Hallows Eve. It is only given to those who return to the path, who remember where they came from, even when they think they belong somewhere else." Emily's, 20, breath hitched. This tangible symbol of acceptance, offered after the sharp lesson, felt infinitely more significant than any party praise. She bowed her head as Eliza, 54, stepped behind her and fastened the cool silver chain around her neck. The pendant settled against her skin, a tangible connection to the spirits she had scorned. "Thank you, Mom," Emily, 20, managed, her voice thick with gratitude. "I understand now. It's not about being old-fashioned. It's about being grounded." That evening, Emily took her responsibility to heart. She didn't wait for an invitation. She found Lily, 10 years old, her younger cousin, who was quietly looking at the altar display. Lily wore a simple cream cotton dress. "Can you show me how to light the candle properly?" Lily asked shyly, pointing to the remembrance candle. "Mom says you're doing it right now." Emily, 20, smiled, a genuine, unforced expression. "Of course, Lily," she said, the of course feeling completely natural. She led the younger girl to the altar, knelt beside her on the rug, and struck a match. As the flame caught and illuminated the burlap banners, Emily whispered the old words slowly, reverently, mimicking the cadence she had heard her grandmother use. a cadence she had finally truly absorbed. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through the trees surrounding the red brick house. The sound was no longer a threat, but a protective embrace. The past was secured, carried gently into the future, not as an obligation, but as a cherished strength. Emily, 20, remembered every syllable. Asterisk. The weeks that followed were marked by subtle but profound shifts in Emily's 20 existence. The silver pendant remained around her neck, a cool touchstone against her skin, a silent reminder of the stakes involved in forgetting one's heritage. She began to integrate her two worlds, not by abandoning one for the other, but by anchoring the exciting chaos of her Birmingham student life to the deep, quiet strength of her Stratford-upon-Avon roots. She called Maya 22 and explained, honestly and without apology, why she'd missed the party, mentioning the necessary family tradition. Maya, initially skeptical, was won over by the sincerity in Emily's 20 voice. You sound different, Em. More focused, Maya admitted. Emily, 20, explained. I was lost in the noise. I needed a hard stop to remember what actually matters. My mom used that old oak paddle thing, the one I used to joke about, to make sure I listened. It was sharp, Maya, but it was necessary. It forced me to look inward instead of outward. Her studies in fine arts took on a new dimension. Where before she focused on transient modern trends, she began to incorporate motifs from Hartley history, the symbolism of the harvest banners, the flame of remembrance, the patterns from her grandmother's sewing. Her art became deeper, richer, imbued with a sense of timelessness that immediately drew attention from her 20-year-old peers. When Eliza, 54, saw the new sketches of vibrant charcoal drawing of the soul cakes, glowing under candlelight, she didn't speak of the past correction. She simply laid her hand on Emily's 20 shoulder. You are honoring them, my dear. Emily, 20, turned, the silver pendant catching the light. I am honoring myself, Ma. I finally understand that belonging isn't about fitting into someone else's mold. It's about knowing where your foundation is built. The red brick house felt whole again. The spirit of the ancestors, whose guidance had been temporarily scorned, now felt not like a burden, but like a profound, quiet strength supporting the 20-year-old woman who had walked through the fire of necessary consequence and emerged grounded. The rain tapping against the bay windows no longer sounded like lamentation, but like applause for a lesson learned well. If you are part of a family tradition, what is the emotional boundary where dismissing it moves from personal choice to active disrespect against the family unit? In this fictional scenario was the swift, physical consequence the only way Emily, 20, could have broken her cycle of denial? Or could Eliza, 54, have achieved the same result through other means?